helpless Mustang foal, torn from its herd, stands surrounded by hungry eyes. Its fragile life teeters on the brink, but fate stirs. An unlikely alliance is about to ignite, forging bonds that will defy the cruel laws of nature and the darkness of desperation. This is a story of survival, trust, and the beginning of a bond that will defy all odds. The wind screamed through the jagged peaks of the canyon, carrying with it the raw scent of fear, sharp and metallic, like blood on stone. A tiny foal, its legs trembling with exhaustion, stumbled through the thick underbrush, eyes wide with terror. Alone, vulnerable, each panicked breath turned to vapor in the icy dusk air, the cold biting into its delicate skin as the shadows of the forest grew longer, deeper. The sun was drowning behind the mountain ridges, painting the sky in violent streaks of crimson and gold, as if the land itself was bleeding. And in the suffocating silence of that wild expanse, there was no safety, only the cruel certainty of nature's cold indifference. From the tree line, the wolves crept forward, their eyes, glistening like molten amber, locked onto the struggling creature before them. Muscles rippled beneath their wiry frames as they advanced, each step deliberate, patient. They were hunger incarnate, drawn by the scent of weakness and isolation. The leader, a scarred brute with frost-rimmed fur, bared his teeth, low growls vibrating like a dark hymn through the pack. The foal's legs gave out, folding beneath its slight frame. Its heart hammered wildly, too young to understand what was happening, but instinct screamed louder than reason. Run, survive. But it was too late for that. The pack lunged forward, jaws gaping like cruel promises. A thunderous roar of hoofbeats shattered the stillness. The ground trembled beneath a force as sudden as it was furious. Out of the twilight charged a shadow as dark as midnight itself. A stallion, black as obsidian, muscles rippling like storm-swollen rivers beneath his sleek coat. His eyes blazed, not with fear, but with defiance, and power surged in every stride. Striker. With fury born from ancient instinct, Striker surged between the foal and its would-be executioners, his hooves cutting deep into the earth. He reared high, slashing through the air like a blade of living rage, and crashed down with terrifying force. The wolves recoiled, snarling, but Striker didn't yield. His body was a shield of raw determination, his breath steaming in the cold, air like smoke from a raging fire. But the wolves weren't done. They spread out in a crescent, circling, hungry and calculating. Striker snorted, his hooves pawing the ground. He was strong, but alone. Even a creature as powerful as he couldn't hold them off forever. Then, unexpectedly, the underbrush rustled. A blur of grey streaked through the shadows, lean, fast, eyes sharp with a different kind of wild intelligence. A coyote, ragged yet fierce, broke into the clearing with a snarl that echoed like a challenge across the trees. Meadow. Unlike the wolves, Meadow wasn't driven by pack hunger. She was a rogue, a creature that understood survival in its most brutal form. Her loyalty belonged to no one, until now. She darted between the wolves with cunning precision, nipping, barking, drawing their attention away from the foal. Striker seized the moment. With a powerful shove of his shoulders, he nudged the trembling foal upright, guiding it away from the jaws of death. The foal stumbled forward, driven by the raw terror of survival. Meadow wove through the chaos, harassing the wolves, drawing them away just long enough. The pack, sensing their moment slipping, surged forward again, but Striker's fury hadn't waned. His hooves struck like hammers, driving the predators back with sheer will. And then the wolves stopped, not because of Striker's fury or Meadow's clever diversions, but because nature had shifted. A sound, a sharp crack of twigs behind the pack, echoed through the trees. Humans. Striker's ears twitched at the distant but familiar sound of boots crunching against earth. The scent of leather, metal, and cold steel followed, bitter and thick. Wranglers. The two-legged predators were close, too close. But there was no time to think. With Meadow at his side, Striker guided the foal through a narrow break in the trees, deeper into the heart of the wilderness. Every muscle in his body burned, but failure wasn't an option. The foal stumbled again, weakened from fear and exhaustion, but Striker pressed on, each breath heavy with responsibility. The forest swallowed them whole. Hours passed, or maybe only minutes. It was impossible to tell beneath the suffocating shroud of adrenaline. Finally, in a small clearing veiled by towering pines, they stopped. The moon hung high above, pale and cold, casting silver light on their battered forms. The foal collapsed into the grass, sides heaving, eyes glazed with exhaustion. Striker lowered his head, pressing his muzzle gently against the young one's trembling flank. A silent promise. Meadow stood watch at the edge of the clearing, her sharp gaze sweeping the darkness. Her sides heaved with exhaustion, but her spirit remained unbroken. She didn't trust easily. Life had taught her better than that. But tonight, for reasons she couldn't explain, she stood beside them. The forest was quiet now, save for the wind's mournful sigh through the trees. But the danger wasn't over. Not yet. Striker turned his gaze skyward. The stars, scattered like shattered glass across the black velvet of the sky, offered no comfort, only the cold truth of the wild. Survival had been won. For now. But in the distance, far beyond the safety of the clearing, the echo of hoofbeats wasn't the only threat that remained. The wranglers were coming, and this time they wouldn't stop until they had what they wanted. The dawn broke with a reluctant grey light, creeping across the horizon like a secret unwillingly revealed. The forest was quiet now. Too quiet. Every leaf, every gust of wind seemed to hold its breath, as if the wilderness itself sensed the danger closing in. Striker stood sentinel at the edge of the clearing, his powerful frame silhouetted against the rising sun. His muscles ached from the night's battle, but he remained still, eyes sharp and ears flicking at every distant sound. His breath came heavy but steady, each exhale swirling into the cold air in ghostly tendrils. The foal lay curled beneath, a blanket of dew-speckled grass, trembling in its shallow sleep. Its young body bore no visible wounds, but trauma cut deeper than teeth or claw ever could. Its chest rose and fell too fast, fear clawing at it from the inside, even in dreams. And then there was Meadow. She sat at a distance, her lean frame tense, every sense sharp. Her ears twitched at the faint rustling of leaves far off, a sound most creatures would have ignored. But not Meadow. The wilderness had sharpened her instincts into something close to prophecy. She could feel the danger threading through the air like poison. Striker's eyes met hers. No words passed between them. None were needed. The understanding was raw, primal. They were not safe here. The wranglers were close. Far off, the sound of human voices echoed faintly. A sharp whistle, followed by the unmistakable creak of saddles and the jangle of metal spurs against leather. Every sound carved fear deeper into the forest's bones. Striker turned back to the foal, lowering his head to nudge it gently awake. The young horse blinked rapidly, confusion clouding its eyes before the fear returned like a tidal wave. Its tiny legs struggled beneath it, but Striker stood firm and patient, guiding the foal upward with a soft grunt of encouragement. They needed to move. The sun was rising fast now, burning away the shadows that had cloaked them. But daylight was no comfort. It was exposure. The wranglers would be able to track them more easily now. Every broken branch, every trembling footprint left a trail, a map to their fear. Meadow led the way, her slender body weaving effortlessly between underbrush and fallen logs. Every movement was calculated, silent, a perfect harmony of speed and caution. Striker followed close behind, the foal tucked against his side like a fragile secret. The forest thickened as they moved deeper into the wilderness, ancient trees standing like sentinels with their gnarled roots clawing at the earth. The air grew damp, heavy with the scent of moss and earth, wrapping around them like a shroud. Yet even here, Danger was never far. A sharp crack echoed through the woods. Too close. The distinct sound of a branch snapping under the careless weight of a boot. Striker's pulse quickened. They were being tracked. Suddenly, Meadow froze, her body tense as a drawn bow. Her ears flattened, and her nose twitched. She smelled it too. Humans. Close. Too close. Without hesitation, she veered off their path, leading them toward a narrow ravine shrouded by thick brambles. Striker didn't question it. Trust was no longer a choice. It was survival. They reached the ravine's edge, a steep drop hidden beneath layers of foliage. Below, a narrow stream carved through the stone like a silver blade. It wasn't safe, but the wranglers were a greater danger. With a grunt of determination, Striker nudged the foal forward. The young horse hesitated, legs trembling, eyes wide with terror. Meadow barked softly, a strange, encouraging sound, and the foal, trembling with every ounce of fear and exhaustion, took a hesitant step forward, and then it leapt. The foal stumbled, on the landing, but remained upright. Striker followed without hesitation, his powerful legs carrying him down with practiced ease. Meadow was the last, her agile body weaving through the undergrowth before disappearing into the ravine below. The stream offered some cover, but it wasn't enough. The wranglers were relentless, driven by greed and the promise of domination over something wild and free. Striker remembered their traps, cruel steel jaws buried beneath leaves, the scent of bait luring the unwary. He remembered the sting of ropes biting into flesh, the suffocating fear of confinement. He had escaped once, but not without scars. The memory burned through him now, fueling his resolve. The sun climbed higher as they followed the stream, each step echoing in the silence. Time became a blur of frantic movement, fear thickening with every heartbeat. But then, a clearing. Striker slowed as they broke through the trees into a wide, open glade surrounded by towering cliffs. The air was fresher here, carrying the scent of wildflowers and damp stone. This place was ancient, a forgotten cradle of nature untouched by human hands. It was here that Striker stopped, his chest heaving. The foal collapsed beside him, every muscle shaking with exhaustion. Meadow stood guard at the edge of the clearing, her sharp eyes scanning the perimeter. The forest was silent again, but the silence felt different now. Not fear, anticipation. And then they heard it, the distant thunder of hooves, but not from the wranglers. Striker's heard. A glimmer of hope sparked in his chest as familiar scents reached him, his kin, his family. They were near, answering the silent call of one of their own. The wilderness was vast, but bonds forged through survival ran deeper than rivers. But the relief was short-lived. From the cliffs above, shadows shifted. Striker looked up just in time to see them. The wranglers, silhouetted against the sky, rifles slung over shoulders, ropes coiled like vipers at their sides. One of them pointed. The hunters had found them. Panic surged through Striker's veins like wildfire, but Meadow was already moving. She darted forward, snapping at the air with furious determination, drawing attention away from the foal. Striker knew what had to be done. He nudged the foal to its feet with gentle urgency, and then pushed it toward the trees at the far end of the clearing. "Go," every motion said. "You have to run now." But the foal hesitated. The wranglers began their descent, voices sharp and cruel. Striker turned, squaring himself between the humans and the foal, his body coiled and ready to fight. Every instinct screamed protect. He would not let them take another piece of the wild. Not today. Meadow was a blur of motion, barking, snapping, drawing their fire. The first rifle shot cracked through the air like lightning, splintering the silence. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. The herd was near. Striker could feel them now, their presence like a heartbeat in the earth. But time was running out, and as the wranglers closed in, the fierce stallion made his choice. He would not fall without a fight. The earth trembled beneath Stryker's hooves. As he lunged forward, every ounce of muscle and fury coiled into raw power. His eyes blazed with defiance, reflecting the fire of the wild, untamed, unbroken. The stallion was no mere creature of instinct. He was the embodiment of freedom itself. And now, that freedom stood between the wranglers and the fragile life they sought to claim. The wranglers advanced with grim determination. Their ropes dangled like vipers, and the cold gleam of metal in their hands promised no mercy. The man at the front, broad-shouldered, his face weathered like cracked leather, raised his rifle. His voice cut through the air like a blade. "Bring it down!" But before the shot could ring out, Meadow struck. She was a flash of grey fury, leaping from the underbrush with terrifying precision. Her jaws clamped onto the man's arm, her teeth sinking deep into flesh. He cried out, stumbling backward, the rifle clattering uselessly to the ground. Blood darkened his sleeve, but Meadow didn't linger. She was already darting back into the shadows, a phantom in motion. Stryker seized the opening. With a furious scream that echoed across the cliffs, he surged forward, crashing into the wranglers with unstoppable force. His hooves struck like hammers, sending one man sprawling into the dirt, his breath ripped from his lungs by the brutal impact. Another swung a rope, but Stryker pivoted mid-charge, the rope missing its mark by mere inches. But there were too many. For every wrangler driven back, another pressed forward, their eyes dark with greed and determination. This wasn't just a hunt, it was conquest. To them, Stryker wasn't a living creature, he was a prize, a trophy to be broken. Meadow, relentless despite her wounds, tore through the underbrush, creating diversions with sharp, furious barks. Her movements were wild and erratic, drawing the attention of the men who hesitated at the thought of facing her snapping jaws again. But even with their combined strength, the fight was slipping away. Stryker's gaze darted to the foal. Hidden, at the far edge of the clearing, trembling beneath a thicket of ferns. "Not yet," Stryker's heart screamed. "You must hold on just a little longer, and then," the earth answered. A low, thunderous rumble rolled through the forest, distant but growing stronger, closer. The wranglers paused, confusion rippling through their ranks. It wasn't the storm, it was the herd. The ground shook beneath the sheer force of numbers. From the tree line, like a tidal wave of raw, untamed power, Stryker's family emerged. Wild, majestic creatures, with manes like liquid fire and eyes burning with primal fury. Leading them was a mare, her coat as pale as winter frost, eyes sharp, with determination. Lyria, the matriarch of the herd. With a chorus of shrieks and thunderous hoofbeats, the herd charged. The wranglers barely had time to react before the storm of wild horses descended upon them. Ropes were torn from desperate hands, rifles kicked from trembling grips. The air was filled with the screams of men who had dared to challenge the untamed wilderness. Stryker didn't hesitate. He rejoined the charge, his powerful frame cutting through the chaos like a blade. Every muscle burned with exhaustion, but there was no room for weakness now. Not when everything was at stake. The foal remained hidden, forgotten amid the chaos. Meadow, sensing the shift in battle, limped toward the young horse. Her breathing was ragged, her flank streaked with blood from a graze along her ribs. But she pressed on, gently nudging the foal toward the cover of the deeper woods. "Go," her instincts whispered. "Survive." The wranglers, overwhelmed and outnumbered, scrambled to retreat. One managed to grab a rifle, raising it toward the charging mass of horses, but Stryker saw the movement. With every ounce of strength left in him, he charged. The impact was brutal, his hooves connected with the man's chest, sending him sprawling backward, the rifle skidding uselessly across the ground. The human groaned, clutching at his ribs as the breath was torn from his body. The herd surged past, driving the remaining wranglers deeper into chaos. And then, silence. The battle was over. The wranglers, beaten and broken, fled into the shadows of the forest, leaving behind only shattered weapons and the stench of fear. The wild had won this day, but not without cost. Stryker stood at the center of the clearing, his body trembling with exhaustion. His sides heaved with every breath, and his coat was streaked with sweat and dirt. Around him, the herd gathered, eyes wide with cautious relief. Lyria approached, pressing her muzzle gently against his neck, a silent gesture of gratitude and solidarity. But Stryker's thoughts were with Meadow. She lay at the edge of the clearing, her body still and breath shallow. Blood stained her grey fur, dark and cruel against the pale earth. The foal stood beside her, nuzzling her side with quiet desperation. Stryker approached, lowering his head to meet her eyes. They were still sharp, still alive, but dimmed with pain. Meadow managed a weak growl, baring her teeth in defiance even as her body betrayed her. But there was no fight left. Only exhaustion. Only pain. Stryker lowered his head, pressing his muzzle gently against her forehead. A silent acknowledgement. A thank you for her bravery, for the sacrifice she had made for creatures not her own. The herd gathered around them, forming a circle of silent respect, but the wild is never merciful for long. In the distance, the sky darkened with heavy, brooding clouds. Thunder rumbled again, not the song of hooves this time, but the warning of an approaching storm. The air grew thick with the scent of rain and electricity. Stryker knew they couldn't stay here. The foal, still trembling but alive, needed shelter, and Meadow needed safety if she was going to survive her wounds. The herd, though victorious, was battered and tired. They needed to move, now. Stryker turned toward Lyria, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. The journey wasn't over. The fight for survival wasn't done, but for the first time since the chaos began, there was hope. Stryker stood tall, his voice rising into the gathering storm, a call, not of fear, but of unity, a cry for the herd to gather, to protect their own, to move forward. The herd answered, their voices rising into the sky like thunder, and as the first drops of rain fell from the darkened heavens, Stryker led them forward, through pain, through exhaustion, through the raw scars of battle. Because survival wasn't just about winning the fight, it was about healing, and the journey toward redemption had just begun. The storm broke over the forest like a living force. Sheets of rain poured from the sky, washing over the earth in a relentless torrent. Thunder snarled in the heavens, and each crack of lightning split the sky into jagged scars of white light. The wilderness roared, fierce and wild, as if the land itself was purging the violence that had just stained it. Stryker moved forward through the downpour, every muscle aching, every breath a reminder of the battle they had barely survived. The herd followed, a living tide of bodies moving together as one, united by instinct, by fear, by victory hard won. At his side, the foal struggled to keep pace, its small legs trembling with exhaustion. But Stryker stayed close, guiding it forward, step by careful step. And Meadow was still alive. She was draped across Stryker's broad back. Her body weakened from blood loss and pain, but her heart still beat, a stubborn, ragged pulse that refused to fade. The storm cloaked them in shadow, but Stryker felt her warmth against him, her spirit lingering even as her strength drained away. The herd pressed onward through dense underbrush, the rain masking their scent, drowning any trace of the battle behind them. The wranglers were gone, driven off by the fury of the wild, but the memory of their presence clung to the air like smoke. They needed shelter, a place to heal, a place where the scars of the past could begin to fade. As if summoned by desperation, the trees opened into a hidden valley, a place untouched by human hands, wrapped in mist and silence. Towering cliffs cradled the clearing, and a crystal-clear spring spilled down moss-covered rocks, filling the air with the soothing sound of rushing water. It was a sanctuary, a hidden refuge carved from time and nature itself. Striker paused. At the edge of the valley, the rain washing over his body like absolution. His breath was heavy, but his heart beat steady and strong. He had led them here. They were safe. For now. The herd moved slowly into the clearing, lowering their heads, to drink from the spring, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and relief. Lyria approached Striker with a soft nicker, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and sorrow. She understood the cost of survival. They all did. Gently, Striker lowered himself to the earth, easing Meadow from his back onto the soft grass beneath, a towering oak. Her sides rose and fell in shallow breaths, her eyes half closed, but there was peace in her expression, a flicker of something rare and pure. Safety. The foal, fragile and trembling, approached Meadow with cautious steps. It nuzzled her side gently, a small gesture of thanks, of recognition. Meadow opened one eye and offered a weak, reassuring growl, soft, not threatening. Acceptance. The rain slowed to a gentle mist as the storm began to pass, leaving behind the scent of wet earth and rebirth. The forest was quiet again, but it wasn't the silence of fear. It was peace, a fragile, hard-earned peace. Days passed. The sun rose and fell in gentle rhythms, and slowly, life began to return to the battered herd. Striker watched over them from the heart of the valley, his presence a constant, unwavering force. His body healed, muscles mended, wounds faded, but the deeper scars, the ones carved by loss and fear, remained hidden beneath the surface. Meadow's recovery was slower. Her wounds were deep, and though her body was small, her spirit was vast. Striker often found her lying beneath the old oak tree, the foal resting nearby, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. She didn't trust easily. Years of solitude had carved caution deep into her bones. But here, in the quiet of the valley, something shifted. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the sky, Meadow stood. Her legs trembled beneath her, and every breath was a struggle. But she stood. The herd watched in silence as she took a shaky step forward, then another. Striker moved to her side, offering silent support, but she didn't lean on him. This was her victory. The foal nuzzled against her, and for the first time, Meadow lowered her head and gently nudged it back. Not rejection, acceptance. A gesture of connection that spoke louder than any sound ever could. Seasons began to turn. The valley bloomed with wildflowers, and the air grew thick with the songs of birds and the rustle of leaves. Life returned, not in a sudden wave, but in quiet moments. A gentle breeze, the warmth of sunlight on worn bodies, the unspoken comfort of knowing they were not alone. Striker watched as the foal grew stronger, its legs no longer trembling, its body filling out with newfound strength. It ran with the other young horses now, wild and free, but always returned to Meadow's side at night, resting in the safety of her presence. For Striker, the scars of battle never fully faded. He still bore the memory of the wrangler's cruelty, of the ropes, the traps, the fear. But with each sunrise, those memories softened, replaced by the simple beauty of survival and the quiet strength of those who had endured alongside him. One evening, beneath the pale light of a full moon, Striker stood atop a ridge overlooking the valley. Meadow sat beside him, her body healed though marked by faint scars, a testament to her bravery, her resilience. Below, the herd grazed peacefully, the foal running circles around the others, its joyful cries echoing through the stillness. The world was quiet, not with fear, but with peace. Striker turned to Meadow, and though no words passed between them, there was understanding in their shared silence. They had survived, against all odds, against cruelty, against the wilderness itself. But more than that, they had found something deeper than survival. They had found healing. The wind carried the scent of wildflowers and fresh rain, the valley alive with the soft whispers of nature's grace. The scars they bore were not marks of defeat. They were proof of endurance, of battles fought and won in the silence of the heart. The wilderness was fierce, it was ruthless, but within that untamed fury was beauty too. Bonds forged in adversity, friendships born from sacrifice, and the quiet redemption of survival. Stryker watched the horizon as the first light of dawn broke across the sky, casting the world in shades of gold and fire. He knew the dangers of the wild would always linger, just beyond the tree line. There would always be challenges, always shadows lurking in the distance, but they were stronger now. The foal was free. The herd was whole. Meadow had found a place, not just to survive, but to belong. And as the sun rose over the valley, painting the sky in soft hues of hope, Stryker knew this wasn't just an end. It was a beginning. The wilderness remained vast and fierce, but within it thrived something far stronger than fear: resilience, unity, and the unbreakable spirit of the wild. And in that endless stretch of sky and earth, they were finally free. If you enjoyed this story, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where your support means the world to us. We look forward to bringing you more content that inspires growth, joy, and purpose. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for another special story.